Welcome to Tell Me More Stories Told As podcast. Today, we're not just scrolling through pictures, we are going deep, really diving headfirst into the incredible story of the camera. This amazing device hasn't just shown us the world, it's actually, well, it's shaped how we see everything. Think of this as unlocking a visual time capsule. It's full of genius inventions, moments that totally changed history. We've gathered some really fascinating stories and details for you, all ready to unpack. Our mission, it's simple. Unearth the most compelling bits about these image-making machines, from their kind of mysterious beginnings right up to the digital wonders we all carry around now. Get ready for some surprising facts and maybe a few aha moments. Let's get focused.
Absolutely. And when you really think about it, the camera's role goes way beyond just taking snapshots.
Yeah.
It's been like a silent witness,
Yeah.
a tool for art, a driver of social change even. And the whole idea started much, much earlier than most people probably think.
Exactly. So our story really kicks off way back in the shadows of the 19th century. Picture this.
Okay.
A dark room, the camera obscura. Light streams through just a tiny hole and bam, an upside-down image appears on the wall opposite. It must have seemed like magic.
Totally magical.
And that was the spark, right? For inventors like Thomas Wedgwood, Niépce, Henry Fox Talbot, they were almost like alchemists trying to bottle light.
That's a great way to put it. Alchemists of light. Their early tries were, well, painstaking is putting it mildly, and the results weren't exactly Instagram ready.
No, definitely not instant gratification.
It was this period of intense experimentation, everyone trying to figure out how to make those fleeting images permanent. And then, boom, 1839, the daguerreotype.
The breakthrough.
A real breakthrough. Suddenly you had these incredibly sharp, permanent pictures on silvered copper plates. It caused a huge sensation. And that really marks the start of commercial camera making. By the 1850s, things were getting standardized. The age of photography was truly kicking off.
And can you imagine carrying those first cameras, huge wooden boxes, heavy tripods? Taking one photo was a whole production.
Absolutely, not exactly pocket size.
But things started moving faster. The second half of the 19th century, we get dry plates, which helped. And then the real game changer, roll film.
Yes, roll film. This is where photography starts to become personal.
And the key moment there has to be the original Kodak camera, right? 1888.
Precisely. George Eastman's whole idea wasn't just about a better camera, it was about making photography for everyone. You bought the camera, it already had film for 100 shots.
Wow.
You took your pictures, sent the whole camera back to Kodak. They developed it, printed the photos, reloaded it, and sent it back.
You press the button, we do the rest.
That slogan wasn't just marketing fluff, it was like a revolutionary promise. It democratized visual memory. Suddenly, average people could easily document their own lives.
It really was a massive shift. Now, here's something I found fascinating. Those early photos often needed super long exposure times, sometimes minutes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Forget action shots.
Right. Imagine trying to get a family portrait. Everyone frozen perfectly still for like 5 minutes straight. Any little twitch.
And you're a ghost. A blur. It really makes you appreciate today's instant snaps, doesn't it?
Totally. And it highlights the patience, the artistry of those early photographers. They had to compose so carefully. Wait for the light.
It was a completely different process.
Yeah.
Very deliberate. Then the 20th century arrives, and the focus shifts. Smaller cameras, more portable, new materials. And after World War I, Germany becomes a real powerhouse in camera development.
That's right. You get these iconic brands like Leica and Contax. They weren't just cameras. They felt like precision instruments, pushing lens tech, film quality.
Really high-end stuff.
And it wasn't just stills. Eastman Kodak, again, making movie making accessible. 16 millimeter, 8 millimeter reversal safety film.
Right, the reversal film was key. Process it, and boom, a positive image. No separate negative needed for projection. Home movies suddenly became a thing people could actually do.
Capturing moving memories. Amazing.
And then, after World War II, Japanese manufacturers really step up. Companies like Ricoh, Olympus, they brought out clever designs, affordable TLRs, twin-lens reflex cameras, and crucially, 35 millimeters SLRs with automatic exposure. That made things even easier, put more creative power in people's hands.
The innovation just kept coming, didn't it? The 70s, that felt like another big shift with electronics becoming key.
Oh, absolutely. Think about the Polaroid SX70. Instant photos developing right there.
Iconic.
Or the Canon AE1, one of the first SLRs to really embrace electronics for exposure control. It was clearly pointing towards, well, towards digital.
Yeah, you could see it coming.
And then late 20th century, the ground really starts shaking for film. Digital photography starts gaining serious momentum. Seemed like sci-fi not long before, but by 2003, in the US anyway, digital camera sales actually overtook film sales.
Wow, that's a defining moment.
A huge turning point.
But it's important to say film didn't just vanish, right? Even as digital took over globally, film camera making continued elsewhere, often using those classic love designs.
That's true. There's still a real love for the analog process, the look of film. It has an enduring appeal.
Definitely.
And that brings us to the 21st century. The true digital revolution. Mass adoption. Sensors getting exponentially better.
And the biggest change of all, arguably, cameras landing in smartphones.
Oh my goodness, yes. Game changer. That single move completely reshaped photography. Suddenly, almost everyone has a decent camera in their pocket, all the time.
It went from being a specific activity to just part of everyday life. The sheer number of photos taken now is just mind-boggling.
Staggering. And it also brought in computational photography. Our phones use these incredibly smart algorithms, AI, to improve the pictures we take.
Right, like better low-light shots, HDR, that portrait mode effect with the blurry background.
Exactly. That's all software working magic behind the scenes. It's
Right.
not just fixing flaws, it's changing what a photo is. Algorithms are making creative choices now. Early photographers couldn't have imagined it.
It's absolutely wild when you think about it. Okay, let's peek inside these devices, old and new. How do they actually capture an image? Because the basic idea, whether film or digital, is kind of the same, isn't it?
It really is, fundamentally.
Yeah.
At its core, any camera is basically a light-tight box.
Right.
Light comes in through a lens at the front, and an image gets recorded on something light-sensitive at the back, film or a digital sensor. It's beautifully simple, really just refined over centuries.
And the shutter, that's the gatekeeper, controlling how long the light gets in.
Precisely. The shutter opens for a set time, light hits the film or sensor, then it closes. Simple but crucial. And most cameras have a viewfinder, obviously, to see what you're shooting, plus controls for focus, aperture, shutter speed. The photographer's toolkit.
Okay, exposure control. That seems key to getting a decent picture.
Yeah.
You mentioned aperture, shutter speed, and modern cameras have light meters. Let's break that down. Aperture first. What is it doing?
So the aperture is basically an adjustable hole inside the lens. Think like the iris in your eye, and it opens and closes to control how much light gets through.
Okay.
It's made of these little overlapping blades. And we measure its size using f-stops. Now, here's the slightly counterintuitive bit. The f-stop numbers work backwards. A small number, like f2.8, means a wide opening, letting in more light. Think of f like a fraction of f2.8 is bigger than, say, f16.
Gotcha. So f1.4 is wide open, lots of light. f16 is tiny, much less light.
Exactly. But aperture does more than just control brightness. It also hugely affects depth of field.
Depth of field, that's how much of the picture is in focus, right?
Precisely. A wide aperture, that small f number, gives you a shallow depth of field. So your subject is sharp, but the background gets all nicely blurred out. Great for portraits.
Yeah, I love that look.
A narrow aperture, a large f number like f16, gives you a deep or large depth of field. Everything from near to far can be sharp. Think landscapes.
Okay, that makes sense. Aperture, light, plus focus range. Now the shutter, it controls how long the light gets in. How does that affect the look?
Right, shutter speed or exposure time. That's the duration the sensor or film sees the light. It can be super short, like 11,000th of a second, or much longer seconds, even minutes for specific effects.
Like light trails from cars.
Exactly. That's a slow shutter speed. It intentionally blurs movement. A fast shutter speed does the opposite. It freezes action. A bird mid-flight, sharp wings, that's a fast shutter.
Fast freezes, slow blurs. Got it. And like aperture, shutter speeds work in steps, doubling or halving the light each time.
Correct. It's all about balancing these things.
And to help with that balance, most modern cameras have built-in light meters.
Absolutely. Usually TTL, through the lens metering, they measure the light coming through the lens using sensors. The camera's brain then uses that info, plus your aperture, shutter, and ISO settings. That's the sensor's sensitivity to figure out the best exposure, like a little helper inside.
It's pretty clever. And there are different ways they measure the light, too, like center-weighted, matrix.
Yeah, different metering modes. Center-weighted gives priority to the middle of the frame. Matrix, which is very common now, divides the scene into zones and analyzes them all for a balanced exposure. Spot metering lets you measure a tiny specific point, really useful in tricky lighting, like focusing on someone's face against a bright background.
Okay, really useful overview of exposure. Now let's talk about the eye of the lens. It's way more than just curved glass, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. A camera lens is a complex assembly. Lots of optical elements, usually high-quality glass, all working together. Its main job is focusing light accurately onto the sensor or film to make a sharp image. The lens quality makes a huge difference.
And those different glass bits inside, they're there to fix problems, right? Like weird color edges or things looking bent.
Exactly. Lens designers work hard to minimize optical aberrations. Things like chromatic aberrations, that's the color fringing you mentioned, vignetting dark corners, distortion making straight lines look curved. Better lenses handle these things better generally.
And every lens has a focal length in millimeters. What does that number tell us?
Focal length basically determines two things: field of view, how much of the scene you capture, and magnification, how big things look in the frame. Short focal lengths, like 16 millimeters or 24 millimeters or wide angle, they capture a huge area, great for landscapes, buildings, big groups. Long focal lengths, like 200 millimeter, 300 millimeters, are telephoto. Narrow view, but they magnify distant stuff. Think wildlife, sports.
And then you have zoom lenses versus prime lenses. Zooms let you change the focal length. Primes are fixed. Is one better?
Well, there's often a trade-off. Prime lenses, because they're simpler optically, often give slightly better image quality, sharper, less distortion, maybe faster in low light with wider maximum apertures. They're usually smaller and lighter too.
But zooms are convenient.
Hugely convenient. You can reframe without moving your feet or swapping lenses, so it's often quality and simplicity versus flexibility. That's what you need.
And focus, obviously critical. Twisting a ring manually or letting autofocus do the work, it's all about getting the subject sharp.
Exactly. Focus means adjusting lens elements, so light rays converge perfectly on the sensor plane for a specific distance. Manual focus gives you total control. Autofocus uses motors, sensors. It's gotten incredibly fast and accurate.
And image stabilization, that helps with shaky hands.
Yeah, especially with longer lenses or slower shutter speeds.
Yeah.
It counteracts small camera movements to keep things sharp. Very useful tech.
And things like lens hoods and filters, what are they for?
Hoods block stray light hitting the front of the lens, which prevents flare and keeps contrast up. Caps just protect the glass. Filters, well, they can do lots of things. Protect the lens, cut reflections, enhance colors, create special effects.
Okay, so light comes in, goes through the lens. How do we actually see the picture before we take it? The viewfinder.
That's its job. A real-time preview for composition, checking focus, seeing settings sometimes, essential for framing your shot.
And there are different kinds, optical and electronic.
Right. Optical viewfinders, like in DSLRs, use mirrors and prisms.
Yeah.
You're seeing the actual light coming through the lens that's clear, bright, no lag. Electronic viewfinders, or EVFs, in mirrorless cameras, use a tiny screen inside the viewfinder. Early ones could be laggy or lower res, but modern ones are amazing. Big advantage. They can show you tons of info, live exposure preview, histograms, focus guides, right in the viewfinder.
And what's this parallax error thing?
Parallax. That happens when the viewfinder window isn't in the exact same spot as the lens taking the picture. So what you see might be slightly different from what the camera captures, especially up close.
Which cameras have that issue?
Mostly rangefinders and twin-lens reflex cameras. SLRs avoid it because you're looking through the taking lens via the mirror. Some cameras have ways to compensate for it in the viewfinder, though. Now, speaking of all these fascinating details, if you're finding this deep dive into cameras interesting and you want more stories like this, now's a great time to hit that subscribe button. Don't miss any future episodes of Tell Me More.
Excellent point. Okay, so light's through the lens, shutter's done its thing, we framed it up. Now, the moment of truth, capturing the light. On film or a sensor? Let's talk film first. Loading, it sounds involved.
It could be, especially back in the day. You'd manually load the film canister, carefully thread the film leader onto the take-up spool, make sure it caught,
Right.
close the back securely. Then, after every shot, you had to advance the film lever or winder to get a fresh bit ready. Crucial to avoid double exposures.
2 pictures on 1 frame. Nightmare.
Exactly. And when the roll was done, you had to rewind it all back into the canister before opening the camera. It was definitely a more hands-on, deliberate process than digital.
Sounds like it. Very intentional. Now, digital cameras swapped film for electronic sensors. What are the main types?
Primarily 2. CCD, charge coupled device, and CMOS, complementary metal oxide semiconductor. CCDs were known for great image quality, good light sensitivity, but use more power.
Okay.
CMOS sensors use less power, could offer faster speeds, good for video. CMOS tech has improved so much now that it's pretty much dominant in most cameras, including smartphones.
So sensors turn light into data. And instead of film rolls, we use memory cards.
Right. SD cards, compact flash, etc. Sort of thousands of images. And a huge digital advantage is instant review. See the picture right away on the camera screen.
No waiting for development.
None at all. Plus, digital files are easy to edit, share, manipulate. It totally changed the whole workflow.
Okay, beyond the core camera bits, there's a whole world of accessories. Flash is a big one, just a burst of light.
Pretty much. A short, intense burst to light things up when it's too dark. Modern ones use battery-powered gas discharge tubes. Many are quite smart. They measure the light bouncing back from the subject to figure out how long the flash needs to be for good exposure.
TTL flash metering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They can be built in or attached to the camera's hot shoe for more power and control.
And people use diffusers and reflectors with flash.
Yeah, to shape the light. Diffusers soften it, make it less harsh. Reflectors bounce it, maybe to fill in shadows or direct it differently. Lots of ways to modify flashlight.
And what other accessories are common, besides hoods and filters?
Oh, lots. Lens caps are essential. Lens adapters let you use different brands of lenses. Extension tubes for macro, getting really close up. Camera cases, screen protectors.
Tripods for stability.
Definitely. Cable releases or remotes to trigger the shutter without touching the camera. For specialized stuff, microscope adapters, dew shields for telescopes, UV filters mainly for protection, batteries, chargers, obviously. Large format has its own things like magnifier loops for focusing. Some SLRs even had interchangeable viewfinders or motor drives to advance film automatically.
Wow, it's a whole ecosystem. Okay, let's switch gears and talk about the different types of cameras. It's not just point and shoots and DSLRs, is it?
Not by a long shot. So many types, often built for specific jobs. Let's start with the SLR, single lens reflex. We mentioned the mirror system lets you see right through the lens.
Right, no parallax error.
Exactly. Mirror flips up when you take the shot. DSLRs are just the digital version.
Then large format, the big ones.
Yeah, using sheets of film, not rolls. Huge image quality, tons of control over focus and perspective with bellows and movements. Used for architecture, fine art, advertising. Slower, more deliberate process. You focus on a ground glass screen, think view cameras, press cameras.
And medium format sits between large and 35 millimeter.
Correct. Uses wider roll film, like 120 or 220. Better quality than 35 millimeter. Lots of designs. Hasselblads with interchangeable backs are iconic, but also rangefinder styles.
Okay, then the more consumer-friendly ones, compact cameras.
Right, a broad category. Smaller, lighter, simpler. Includes instant cameras, like Polaroid still popular.
Definitely.
Sub-miniature cameras, tiny things, some used for spying. Folding cameras were popular early on, folded up small. And box cameras, like the Kodak Brownie, super simple, super cheap, made photography accessible to almost everyone.
And rangefinders, they focus differently.
Yeah, they use a separate rangefinder mechanism linked to the lens. You see two images in the viewfinder, adjust focus until they merge. Very accurate, especially with wide aperture lenses. Leica is the famous name here.
Okay, moving images, motion picture cameras.
Or sign cameras. They record a rapid sequence of frames, play them back fast, and you get the illusion of motion. 35 millimeter film was the standard for cinema for ages. Now mostly digital cinematography. Professional video cameras are high-end electronic versions. Camcorders combine the camera and recorder.
And finally, the one most people use daily, digital cameras, covering everything from point and shoots to DSLRs.
And mirrorless cameras, which are huge now.
Yeah.
And of course, the camera phone.
Right.
Digital cameras use sensors, store images on cards. The first one was actually Kodak back in '75, though it barely resembles today's tech.
75, wow.
Yeah. And the first camera phone sold commercially was Sharp in Japan around 2000.
Yeah.
Well, they're everywhere. It's hard to imagine life without them.
Wow, what an absolutely incredible journey that was through the whole world of cameras, from those, early chemical experiments, the camera obscura, right up to the digital powerhouses in our pockets. It's just a remarkable story of innovation.
It really is. A constant drive to capture and share what we see.
And hopefully everyone listening now has a much deeper feel for the core mechanics, the amazing variety of camera types, and the fascinating history behind these instruments.
We certainly hope this deep dive sparked some curiosity, gave you a few of those aha moments we talked about. There's always more, isn't there? The art of photography, new tech emerging.
Absolutely. And hey, before we wrap this up, if you enjoyed this adventure into the world of cameras and you want to uncover more fascinating stories with us, please do hit that subscribe button. That way you won't miss any future deep dives right here on Tell Me More.
Good call. And maybe one final thought to leave everyone with. Just consider how much the sheer availability of cameras, especially smartphones, has changed things. It's not just about documenting life anymore, is it?
No, it feels much deeper.
It's fundamentally altered how we communicate, how we remember things, how we share our lives. What kinds of stories are being told visually now that just couldn't have been imagined, say, 30 or 40 years ago? Something to think about.